Hello everyone, welcome back to Spurs from the Stands. I know you guys are all super excited about this match preview for Tottenham Hotspur versus Borussia Dortmund tomorrow evening, Tuesday the 20th of January. And let's be honest, this is about as thin as I've ever seen the Spurs squad. And we're going to run through all of the context around that. It's a bit of a disaster, not even in terms of rotation. This is about survival for Spurs. And we need fit bodies. We've got a few youth players. We've got some knocks. We've got suspensions, illnesses. And that's even before we get into form or tactics. So just to give us the wider context, obviously this is a Champions League game, so this is the 7th out of 8 Champions League games that get played in the group stages, and Tottenham Hotspur are currently sitting 11th in the table out of 36. And we know that the first 8 teams in the table go automatically through qualification, and the teams sitting at 9th to 24 are going to go through that knockout phase. So anything below 24th to 36 place in the table is going to be knocked out of the Champions League competition. So Dortmund are sitting 10th in the table, so both teams are on 11 points. Both teams have a goal difference of +6. We have conceded less than Dortmund over the Champions League, but they have scored more than us. So Dortmund have scored 19 goals in the Champions League and Spurs have scored 13. But in general, in just taking out the context of the Premier League, and I know we can all get a bit jaded, but having been to all of the Europa League games last year, the audience tends to be very different for these Champions League games inside the stadium. You tend to get a very different atmosphere, and you tend to get a very different response. I don't know why, but that's just what I've seen from the Champions League. From European football in the past few seasons. So it's very strange why this happens. I can't tell you. But on days when we are convinced that we're going to lose, the most Spursy thing ever is that we actually come away with a draw or a result. So it's kind of crazy, I know, but we are Spurs and you never know what's around the corner. So, yes, so going into this game, Spurs sit 11th. Now, this is very important because going into this game on 11 points, obviously we have one more game after this, which is Frankfurt, who are currently sitting on 4 points. So they play Karabag on Wednesday night. Now, that is quite important because if Frankfurt maybe win their next game, I actually don't think there's any way possible that they do qualify. 6, yeah. No, there is a way. There is a way that they qualify. So if Frankfurt win their game, for example, and then they beat us, they would go sort of mid-table. So the table in Champions League is very, very tight. As much as you think the Prem is tight right now, Champions League is even tighter. So this whole new league setup system is very different to what it used to be. And you can have even bigger swings because of the cup, because of it being a cup and the stages of going through that, progressing through the competition. So 24th, who is Copenhagen, who obviously we played, they are on 7 points. So there is a lot of movement that could happen. We could drop probably, in theory, when we are safe, but we probably do need one win. So there are some teams sitting on 6 points. If they win their next 2 games, that would put them on 12 points. So anything less than 11 is not safe. So Liverpool, who's on 12, Atletico Madrid, Real Madrid, Inter, they're all on 12 points. And even if those teams were to lose their next 2 games, it's likely they're probably going to qualify unless there is some crazy 10-0 winner. So we are in a position where we need to draw at least one of our 2 remaining games. That is how it currently stands. Obviously, it's favourable that we win this game because it's at home. But the likelihood is we probably have more chance of beating Frankfurt because we played there last year, we beat them, and it's away, and we tend to perform better away. So you never know what's going to happen. We don't want to be overly optimistic because obviously the general sentiment, as I've just shown you in that last video, is rather neutral right now. And there are some fans out there calling for the manager's head. There are some fans out there who are actually being patient with this. So as much, whatever echo chamber you're living in right now, for every person that thinks, you know, Frank should be out, there are people out there who still think that he should be in. So it's crazy times at Tottenham Hotspur. And we go into this game off the back of that defeat. Morale is low. Changing room morale is low. And not only that, I've just watched the press conference with Frank and Xavi, who revealed he is injured and he is going to be playing. So for all of you guys out there who say that Frank is going to blame it on the injuries, we have a player in our midst who has taken it upon himself, despite not being fully fit, to play a Champions League game. And we have Burnley this weekend. And I know it's just Burnley, as some people might say, just Burnley. You can never say that anymore. But that's Saturday. And as we established yesterday, we have 4 games coming up in a 12-day period. The schedule is jam-packed. And so having this amount of injuries it's not an unprecedented circumstance, but we have put ourselves in this position by not signing players. And I know, I get it. Some of you are going to be like, no, we need to get rid of Frank before we buy more players. It's a catch-22. It's a catch-22 because if you don't buy the players, you don't have the squad, the manager blames the squad, the manager gets fired, the next manager comes in, they're still short on players. So you've got to be realistic about the wider context of things. So, diving into the squad, as I know you're all dying to hear what the squad is. So, as we know, we've got 11 fit outfield players. In my last video, I said 10, but Frank has confirmed that there's 11. So, I had one in the back of my mind who's going to be injured, who is probably not injured. So, we'll cover that. Let's do the rundown. Let's do the rundown of the teams. Who's in the Champions League squad? Who is fit and available? So obviously our goalkeepers, we have Vicario, Kinski and Austin. They are all named. Is this going to be a Vicario game? I kind of secretly hope he's going to try Kinski, but I don't think it's going to happen. But after the last game, him not being strong enough to hold out that goal in the last few minutes of the game, I'd put Kinski in. Rogue, crazy. I don't know how Kinski's performing, but make these players fight for their place. Make them step up. It's a tough one because Vicario is our vice captain. But for this game, I'm not convinced. Maybe this is the kind of decision Frank needs to take to show his leadership, to try and get the fans back on side, to make a big statement like taking out your vice captain from that goalkeeping position. I don't think he's going to do it, but that's potentially what I would like to see. So as to the outfield players, the updates that we know. So Sarr, who went to the AFCON, the competition finished, obviously, and Senegal won. Congratulations, Sarr. However, we received news this morning that Sarr has been taken ill and he has gone to hospital. So I wish him all the best, a speedy recovery. Please come back soon. Let's not start doubting why he's ill, but I'm, very, very sorry to hear that. As for our other midfielders, we have Bentancur injured, Kudus injured. Johnson was named in our squad, but we can't take him out or we can't make changes until after the stage. So he's listed, but obviously not part of Spurs anymore. We have Paulinho, who is out injured. I thought Gray was going to be the player who was the doubt since he went off in the first half, after the first half of the West Ham game. But counting up the numbers, from my calculations, Gray is the person who is fit, who we thought maybe was the doubt. Then we've obviously got Simmons, who is injured and going to be playing. Fantastic. Bergvall is obviously back. Odebear's in the team. As for our defence, we've got Danso, Udogie, Romero, Pedro Porro and Spence who are fit. So you have, I should have mentioned as well, out of the midfield, Bissouma is the guy who wasn't named in this squad. And you also have in the back line, Dragusin, who wasn't named in the squad either. Ben Davies out injured and Van de Ven has suspension. And as for our front line, we know Tell was swapped in for Solanke, but that since has been changed back. So our front line, we have options of Solanke, we have Mawani, and we know that Richarlison is injured. So our two options up front are Solanke and Mawani. Now, just a point here, because Champions League squads, you can have a squad of 25, but 8 of those have to be local, or they consider them as like local. They fall under that, like sort of not homegrown, but locally trained. So because we lack planning, we originally had to cut 2 players from our squad. So we don't have the full 25 capacity. So to make matters worse, right, this is not Frank's fault that he couldn't name the full 25 team squad, because we weren't eligible for that qualification, which is why we had to drop a defender and a midfielder from our squad. So you can see how the cracks appear when you're under the cloche, when you have pressure on you, when you have this injury epidemic, as I call it, because it's no longer a crisis, it is an epidemic. But that's, I think, a very relevant conversation that people need to be having, rather than saying Frank's going to blame the injuries, because if he had another 2 players who were homegrown, he would be able to throw them in the mix. But that's not the case. And that's not down to him. That's down to lack of foresight. That's down to naivety. And that's down to lack of planning. So I said I don't trust our medical team. And the fact that Xavi is injured and he's in the team selection is chronic. Chronic negligence. That's what this is. Chronic negligence. So it is what it is. He's in the squad. So let's go through who I think maybe is going to be on the squad. I would say the team picks itself. The only sort of bit of rotation that we might have is at the back. So obviously with Van de Ven being out, is Porro going to start? So yeah, Romero and Danso are obviously going to be our central defenders. Does Udogie come in? It all depends how fit Udogie is, whether he starts the game. I'm wondering if he comes on as a sub later in the game. If he's not fully match fit, and it's quite worrying that we have players who aren't fully match fit, who are on the bench, because it increases the chances that someone like Udogie is going to play. So, yeah, just for the sake of squad rotation, because we have that game on Saturday, I'm going to throw in Udogie left back, and I think he keeps Porro right back. And then I reckon Spence maybe comes in for the Burnley game. Just my score prediction. My squad prediction. Obviously, we don't know the official one yet. And as for the midfield, this is where it's going to pick itself, because you have our midfield 3 is going to be Bergvall, Gray and Simmons. That's it. Bergvall, Gray and Simmons with no subs available. So please stay fit, Bergvall, Gray and Simmons. Don't go into any hard challenges between now and tomorrow with Romero. That would be great. But those are probably going to be, and I would imagine Bergvall, Gray's going to sit the deeper one, isn't he? Yeah, based on the last two games, Gray's going to be the deeper one, Bergvall in the middle, and Simmons up in that creative 10. And then for our wingers, it's going to be Mawani on the left, Odebear on the right, and Solanke up top. And that is all the options we have, guys. So the only person who's fit, who's going to be on the bench, is going to be Jed Spence. And other than that, our bench is probably going to consist of a backup keeper, probably two backup keepers, Austin and Kinski. And the rest of it is going to be, Scarlett, Williams, Barnett, probably some names you haven't even heard of, Byfield, Roswell, Ulasesi maybe. But essentially, you need... Because if an injury happens, if someone goes down in that game, you need to have players on the bench that you can bring on, regardless whether they're youth players or not. So this is a very, very tricky situation for Frank. I would not trade shoes with him right now, no matter how much I was being paid. Because, that is a high pressure situation. At least fans can't turn on you for choosing the wrong lineup, I guess. That's the only upside of all of this. So... that's the current situation. It's a very strange moment for Spurs. If I was to pick a scoreline, I probably couldn't pick one. I reckon this game has draw written on it, potentially a 1-1 draw. I can't see us keeping a clean sheet. And I'm hoping that Solanke is going to score his first goal since coming back from injury. Maybe with a Mawani assist. I don't know. But let's see what those two play like together, because we haven't actually seen those two in the same team since the very beginning of the season. I don't think. So that's going to be it. That's the extent of our squad. I'm not expecting miracles, but I am expecting some resilience in this game. So let me know, what would you accept as a good night considering all of these injuries? What do you want to be taking from this one? Do you see it as a draw? Do you see us losing? Obviously, you can write your squad predictions in the chat, but they're all going to be the same because that's the players we've got. So let me know your score predictions. And unless there's any breaking news tomorrow, because it's a late game, I might be back on Wednesday, but we'll see about that one. But either way, I'll see you very, very soon. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.